It's one of the shortest tracks in NASCAR, but don't judge a book by its cover.
Big time stack up here, guys.
Despite its size, the Coliseum still packs a mighty punch. And if an unsuspecting driver isn't careful, it might cost him a championship.
Below the cut line to start the race.
The pressure is on, and so is another around the track.
After this weekend, the field to win the championship in both the top two series in NASCAR gets cut dramatically, but we're only focused on one thing, and that is the checkered flag. Welcome into this week's edition of Around the Track. I'm Carla Gebhardt. Gabe McDonald and America's crew chief Larry McReynolds are going to be along shortly, but we've got a Hall of Fame worthy show for you today, including a sit down with the Rainbow Warrior himself, Jeff Gordon, and two-time Daytona 500 champion Michael Waltrip. But first things first, we are racing at Bristol, baby, and the term get a grip is really something that drivers take quite literally when it comes to Bristol. There's not a whole lot of it here, and with so much on the line both Friday and Saturday, you can expect a ton of fireworks early and often on this short track. The last great Coliseum has multiple factors to consider. Besides staying clean, pit times are critical. I mean, one bad stop and you could be down 3, even 4 laps off the leader. Now, for the Xfinity Series on the CW network, it's a last chance to get into the playoffs. But for the Cup guys, it's a last chance to secure enough points or even a win to make it into the round of 12.
Martinsville in the round of 8's been that way, for a handful of years, being a cutoff race to the championship, short track, contact, all that stuff. Bristol would kind of be the same way, as far as short track and cutoff race, going to be intense. The only difference with Bristol is there's more guys trying to get in the next round. There's 16 as opposed to 8. So it could be double the chaos. You never know.
It's definitely different than most of the other sports because here you're still racing with the entire field, right? And there is 16 guys that you are actually racing 4 points. So it's a little bit different, a little bit tricky, but I love it. The fact that I'm going to be racing everyone and everyone is going to be fighting for the win and we're going to be fighting for points at the same time is a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's the tough part, right? That's what makes the playoffs hard is, you get rewarded for winning, but, if you take crazy chances or gambles to try to win and you don't, then you're put yourself into big trouble. So it's definitely not easy, but it is what it is. And, we've done it before and I think we can do it again.
And we're going to drive 266.5 miles over 500 laps in the concrete bowl. Turns will have banking in the ranges of 24 to 28 degrees. Now 27, that's a very important number because that's how many drivers have won here from the pole position. 22% of winners, the most of any spot on the grid. And one man who's done that is a non-playoff driver. That's Kyle Busch. He's the active driver with the most wins at 8. And the same manufacturer has not won this race 2 years in a row since 2014-15. Those additions with Joey Logano winning back-to-back in that Ford Mustang. And with that said, it's time to bring in a man who has quite the history with Bristol Motor Speedway. We've got America's crew chief Larry McReynolds. And Larry, this is called the last great Coliseum for a reason.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it as far as a racetrack, to my knowledge, in the world, Carla. It's a half-mile high bank. You saw the banking, up to 28 degrees of banking, that concrete surface. And you've got these 36, 38 drivers out there running around this half-mile racetrack in about 14, 15 seconds. But I think what makes it so legendary and so unique is where it's located, in the hills of Tennessee. And then throw in the fact that it has 160,000 seats surrounding that thing. I look at it kind of like Lambeau Field, Fenway Park, Wrigley Field. You could go build another one anywhere in the country, but it wouldn't be the same because it's not in Bristol.
Yeah, when you're driving through Tennessee and you see the big bowl, it's just kind of shocking for fans that drive up on that. But obviously, this is also a playoff cutoff race. So let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of the playoff picture. We've got some legends in danger, but also have some young guns moving up. We got Chase Briscoe was really the biggest mover last week, going from dead last and below the cut line to 6 points clear. Still not exactly safe, obviously, but he's found a little breathing room there. Denny Hamlin, however, after 2 straight disappointing weeks, he is on the chopping block, now 6 points behind Briscoe and Gibbs at the cut line. We got Keselowski, Truex, and Burton. They would all be out right now if the cutoff race happened last week. But of course, this one, we hope to see some strong showings by those drivers. Were you surprised with the way the standings were after last week's race?
You know, to me, it kind of repeats what we've seen in round one a lot in previous years. It's not necessarily who's had good performances. It's not necessarily who's had fast race cars. It's who has not had a problem, a mistake, an issue, a penalty. If you go back to Atlanta and in Watkins Glen, 10 to 12 of those 16 playoff teams and drivers had some type of an issue. I think that right there is what's kept it so tight. And you know what? We're headed to Bristol for 500 laps. There's nowhere to hide. Not even the leader has a place he can hide. I've seen the leader get in trouble there a lot because it's like a conveyor belt of race cars once we get into a long green flag run.
Yeah, you're a former crew chief, so let's talk about some pit strategy right now. We know this is going to be an issue. I mean, they're basically going to try to get on and off pit road. It's one of the longest pit roads in all of NASCAR, and you got to go the whole length of the track in this one. So with the tire issues as well that they might possibly have, this is really a big test for drivers.
I've talked to so many drivers, so many crew chiefs and engineers this week, and almost like Watkins Glen, they're using that word unknown. If you go back to this race a year ago, you could go a full fuel run. You could run 150, 60, 70 laps on tires and never even worry about it. We go back there in the spring, little cooler temperatures, the same tire combination, but they changed the application on the track. They put that resin down, and it was a struggle for teams to go 35 or 40 laps. We did have about a 120 lap green flag run at the end. We're going right back there with the same tire combination from the spring. They did a tire test in July. It was 90 degrees. Tire wear was still up. So I can have all the strategy I want, but my biggest strategy is hammering on my driver, tire management. Take care of it. Yeah, you may go out there and cut some fast laps in the beginning, but you're probably going to pay the price, maybe even have a tire wear out on indoor run.
So they're replicating the conditions, but drivers and teams, they're going to be more smart about the way that they approach them.
No doubt. I talked to Chris Gabehart, Denny Hamlin's crew chief. They've won the last two races there at Bristol, and he said they were totally caught off guard in the spring. It showed up in practice, but they all went to bed Saturday night going, it'll be okay tomorrow because the track will rubber in. Well, it was not. He said now we go there and there's things we can do to our race car to help the tire wear.
All right, well, let's talk about the hottest thing in NASCAR right now, and that is the Xfinity Series this weekend. A cut race into the playoffs for these drivers. All races, of course, can be seen on the CW network, by the way, but this is a series that's known for rising stars. Why is the Xfinity Series so special?
Well, to me, what makes it special right now, it's like a hot potato. You take it, I don't want it. We've had 9 different winners in the last 9 races. No driver, no team, no organization seems to be dominating it right now. Yeah, you've got Austin Hill, he's got the 3 wins, but it's a specialty super speedways. You got Shane Van Gisbergen, he has 3 wins, but all on road courses. It just seems hard to handicap that series right now. And as I said last week, the competition to me is at an all-time high.
Yeah, so true. Should be very exciting. And we've got more with Larry coming up, including a visit with someone that he's raced against plenty of times in his Hall of Fame career.
I'd be terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Talladega's bad enough, right?
He's a 4-time Cup Series champion and a Hall of Famer, and yet the current NASCAR playoff schedule would have him on edge if he drove the car today. You can hear from Jeff Gordon in Garage Confidential coming up. And it seems like 2024 is the year of the tire in NASCAR. Coming up, we're going to let you in on the curveball the sport is throwing at teams in the playoffs, including the new tire option tires. Plus, silly season strikes again, not 1, not 2, but 4 driver announcements for 2024 are coming up. 1 in the Xfinity Series, 3 in Cup. You can find out who they are when Around the Track continues. Well, this driver announcement is no surprise. Bubba Wallace will remain with 23XI Racing after signing a multi-year contract extension. Wallace, the first driver for the team co-owned by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, is in his 4th season with 23XI. Since joining the organization, Bubba picked up his first 2 Cup Series victories and has 16 other top 5 finishes. He made his first career playoff appearance last season and finished 10th in the standings. Wallace's extension for 23XI is for 2 years. And Corey LaJoie has found a Cup Series ride for 2025. He will drive the 51 for Rick Ware Racing. Remember, earlier this season, Spire announced that LaJoie would not return to the team to drive the 7 car. So who is going to fill that spot? Well, it's the current driver of the 51. A little bit of a driver swap here. Justin Haley going to Spire in 2025. The 25-year-old is viewed as a prize in free agency for this team, especially for having 135 Cup starts at just 25 years old. And the drivers who are left in the Elite Eight of the NASCAR playoffs, where they're going to have one more challenge during the cutoff race before that championship. NASCAR says it's going to use 2 different soft tires on cars at Martinsville. The short track known as the paperclip, going to have teams use what's known as maybe an option tire on the right side of the cars and an even softer tire on the left side. So teams can maybe get used to it. NASCAR is going to add some extra sets for them during practice. And it's been a storybook so far for Hendrick Motorsports and their 40th anniversary as a NASCAR team. They've got big plans for 2025 to reattempt the double with Kyle Larson. We told you about that last week. But before all of that, they won a championship in 2024. And I sat down with Vice Chairman of HMS and Hall of Famer Jeff Gordon to talk about it in this week's Garage Confidential. This is a big day for Hendrick Motorsports, the announcement that you're going to rerun the double, I guess get the full attempt in for Kyle Larson. A lot of work has gone into this. We kind of talked about that in the press conference. But what does this mean for you and for the organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting collaboration. And even when we started this, to compete in 2024, just getting Arrow McLaren, Hendrick Motorsports, two great organizations and teams with a lot of history in motorsports. And then, of course, having Kyle Larson behind the wheel, was kind of what maybe spawned it from, at the very beginning because of his desire and interest in it. So it took some convincing to get Rick the first time. It may have taken him a little more convincing. No, I think the second time, is a reflection of the excitement of being a part of accomplishing the double and knowing that there was a little unfinished business, but also looking at how it impacted HendrickCars.com and Rick being able to be a part of the Indy 500 for the very first time. I mean, I was probably living more vicariously through Kyle.
Right.
We can't wait to get an opportunity to do it again.
You have all 4 drivers in the playoffs. Speaking of Hendrick Motorsports and the current issues that you're probably dealing with, how special has this postseason already been, and how do you feel about the playoffs and all 4 of your drivers?
Yeah, I mean, we know we have 4 great teams and drivers, but we don't take it for granted to get all 4 of them in the playoffs. So, that was a big accomplishment. And now it's, on to the next job, which is to get all 4 of them through each round and try to get 4 of them to Phoenix. And I mean, like already you look at the drama that's created in the schedule, right? What NASCAR's put in place to challenge the teams, challenge the drivers, and there's going to be pros and cons for every driver and team out there at each track we go to.
You mentioned the schedule. I know as a former driver, how do you feel looking at the schedule?
I'd be terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Talladega's bad enough, right? It's like usually you were just so focused on how do we just get through Talladega. I mean, even the Roval, right, through quite a few obstacles in the way. But now you take Atlanta, which I think is this sort of hybrid super speedway, and we've just seen a lot of attrition in that race in the past. Didn't see as much of it this time, so credit to the drivers and the teams. But still, there was plenty of drama even on the final corner and the final lap. So yeah, if I was driving and I looked at the schedule, even just the format itself,
right?
You just can never take anything for granted, and you can never let your guard down.
I know you want the championship of the 40th anniversary. Mr. H wants it, but I did see a video that Mrs. Hendrick says that she wants it the most. How much pressure does that put on the drivers?
She has been amazing this year, 40th anniversary. We've been able to hear from her a lot more, and just having her interacting with our whole organization and team and hearing some just the inspiring words, because she's been right there alongside Rick for this entire journey. And so she can tell stories that sometimes we don't hear Rick tell, and it's so much fun. But she's also Very competitive.
I was going to say competitive. I can see
Very
that.
competitive. And I love to, listen, I like to motivate our folks in any way we can. So I knew she was going to step up to the plate, and she did. She knocked it out of the park. So I loved, throwing that question at her, because I knew what she was, pretty much what she was going to say to our drivers and our teams. She expects all 4 of them to be in Phoenix.
Maybe she should give them the pre-race talk before they get in their car. You can send her out there.
Yeah, they better be careful, because she will definitely put the pressure on. And we're excited to step up. I think everybody at Hendrick Motorsports is excited to step up for both Mr. and Mrs. Hendrick in this 40th anniversary.
We've got one more driver announcement to make, and it's one of the fastest rising stars in the sport. Someone is making a jump from the Truck Series to Xfinity. You can find out who next. And Michael Waltrip and Bristol Motor Speedway are synonymous with each other, and this is why Waltrip walked away from this crash with no injuries. We'll talk Bristol with him next on Around the Track. Nick Sanchez is moving on up in the NASCAR world. The 23-year-old has been selected to take over the number 48 in the Xfinity Series for Big Machine Racing. The 2022 ARCA champion has had a lot of success in the Truck Series, including 2 wins this season. He entered the weekend 4th in the playoff race. Sanchez replaces a good friend of the show, Parker Kligerman, who is retiring from full-time racing at the end of the season, but not before one last shot at the Xfinity Series championship. And the Xfinity Series has officially arrived on the CW network, and the lineup is absolutely stacked. Rick Allen, Steve Letarte, and the mayor, Jeff Burton, are in the booth calling the action. Look at the schedule, too, as we head into a 12-man Xfinity playoff race. Kansas is next weekend, then all the drama in Talladega, and we'll round out the first round of the playoffs with the Charlotte Roval. Remember, all of those races can be found on the CW network. Be sure to check your local listings for the start times. And Larry, I know you were saying that it's kind of hard to pick a favorite in the Xfinity Series, but if you had to maybe put some money on it and pick one, who would you go with?
One guy that I just see that's just solid as a rock, all types of racetracks. It's almost hard to believe that Justin Allgaier only has 2 wins this year, because with just the twist of the knob about 1/8 of a turn, we could be talking about him having about 8 to 9 to 10 wins, because they've had fast race cars. And right now, 24 playoff points. He's got a pretty good lead over Cole Custer in that regular season points championship. And remember, that's 15 playoff points, so he could walk the dog on playoff points if he indeed seals his championship. Justin has kind of become the Denny Hamlin of the Xfinity Series. He's done everything but win the championship.
Here's another question for you. How well do you know Michael Waltrip?
Quite well. I raced against him for a number of years, and we've been teammates at NASCAR on Fox. I've always said love him to death, but he's one of the few men I know that could ride in the HOV lane by himself and be legal. There's a lot going on inside that guy.
I love that. And Around the Track, Joey Ellis met him for the first time this week at his brew house to talk about Bristol, and it went about as well as you would expect it.
Looking ahead to Bristol, obviously there's a lot of intrigue in that race for a variety of reasons. Always fireworks, dramatics, as you're well aware of, but just what makes that race so intriguing? It's a short track, obviously, and there's a lot of chaos that usually ensues there. Why is that?
That's because it's a half-mile in length and it has banks like Talladega. Yeah. So there's just so much speed and so much action, folks pushing and shoving. And I will tell you, I was at the race in March, the spring race that Denny Hamlin won. I was watching and I'm like, what am I watching? The tires were wearing, and so they weren't just hammered down. They were having to manage their tires, and it was very intriguing to see what was going on and how they would manage that situation and who would come in, get new tires, and could they drive back through the field. Mm-hmm. Just so many parts and pieces to that race that I really enjoyed, and see how that goes, and then circle Bristol to say this is going to be entertaining.
Well, in the meantime, enjoy this. The Michael Waltrip Tap Room, great place, and good place to watch a race as well. So thanks so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Look how young I look in that picture.
Yeah, they haven't aged. I look the same.
Put a helmet on, you can't tell.
Appreciate it, guys. Well, he's a long overdue sight. Chris Buescher burning it down after winning in Watkins Glen last week. But who gets to do this at Bristol this weekend? We'll make our Victory Lane locks next. Let's see what the sportsbooks have to say about the night race at Bristol. Going into the week, DraftKings had Denny Hamlin, a man below the cut line, as the favorite at 4-1. Kyle Larson right behind him at 5-1. C. Bell pretty secure this week, but he's still got 5.5 to 1 odds. Then two guys fighting for spots round out the top 5. Ty Gibbs and Brad Keselowski at 8.5 to 1 and 11 to 1 respectively. So that's who Vegas is going to put their money on, but I guess we don't have to worry about putting money on it. We just have to make the right pick, Larry. So who is your victory lane lock to get it done at Bristol?
I could make a case for any of those drivers right there, but Denny Hamlin is so lucky just to be 6 points below the cut line when you look at these first 2 races of this round, finishes outside the top 20. But as his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, told him on the cool-down lap at Watkins Glen, we're going to our house now. I think Denny Hamlin makes it 3 in a row at Bristol.
That is a good argument. All right, I'm going to go with another JGR driver, and Christopher Bell comes into this one with the least pressure, right, because points leader, but he also won here just last season. Now, I know this was on dirt last year when he won in 2023, but still, I feel like he's always just in the mix. And he and Adam Stevens always get it done. So.
Yeah, he'll be fast up there. And that teammate, Ty Gibbs, he won both stages and led a lot of laps there in the spring. Had a little tire issue. I think he'll be fast.
All right, love that. Enjoy the race, everybody.